Hello everyone, Cepheus here. It's almost time for a new Starbow Patch, but by the time you see this, we probably already have a new Starbow Patch out, patch 1.17, so this is quite exciting. It's been a long time since we patched, and let me just address that before I start showcasing some of the things that are going to be in this patch. So the reason it's been so long is mostly my fault. I have not been that active in Starbow lately. The two other developers that are still active, Kirak and Doa or Triple Z, are both quite active, maybe not as active as they were a couple of months ago, but still pretty active, and have been doing a lot of work for this patch. You may also wonder, why the heck are we still patching Starbow? No one's playing this game anymore. And the simple answer to that question is because we like the game so darn much that we just want to make sure it's as good as it gets, no matter how many people plays it. But since we have had quite a lack of playtesters lately, these changes that we have implemented may be unbalanced because it has been hard to test them properly. We are completely prepared to make some emergency changes if we need to in a couple of weeks, if we get more people playing and they point out some obvious flaws. And we're not scared of changing things because of that. Without further ado, let's go straight into the changes. First change, which is really big, is that we changed the entire pathing engine of the game. So Starbow already had quite an aggressive pathing compared to StarCraft 2, but it was still kind of weak compared to Brood War. And we're not trying to recreate Brood War 100% with Starbow, that's not the goal, but there are so many things from Brood War in Starbow, and there are so many balance and interaction that needs to be maintained from Brood War. And without an aggressive pathing system, that's just not going to happen. Like Zerglings, for example, will always be much stronger versus Marines because they do move much more clumped up and can close into their targets much easier than they can in Brood War. Especially since you can have the whole army on one hotkey, but when you have more smoother pathing, that also destroys it. So we made a different pathing engine. Not only does it spread the units out more, but it also actually has removed some of the behaviors that we had earlier that we didn't like. Like earlier, if I click this army to go here, they would be wandering for a long time afterwards. And as you can see, they stopped. They wandered a little, but they stopped fairly quickly, especially for you guys who played Starbow before. Remember that they would keep wandering a long time. So let's just have a look at this one. You see they spread out a lot. Units, like I can get them together, and like we use hold position. It's actually a little bit tricky, and this was tricky in Brood War 2. Now they're pretty clumped up. But the second I start moving out, they do not wanna be together at all. And this is forcing units, especially when you move large armies across the distances. You get these guys that like lag behind. So if you have like Mutalisks chasing a flock of Marines that are moving across the map, you can often find a Marine that's wandered off a little bit from the rest of his buddies and try and pick him off. And the Terran player has to keep as much tabs on the army as possible. And this is very similar to how it was in Brood War. This has also made it much more difficult to go up and down ramps with a large group of units. Now we have 2 lurkers there, and of course I forgot to add a science vessel. So I'm gonna have a science vessel because even if I can see everything, they actually can't see cloaked units. So we have a bunch of Marines. We have 15 Marines and 5 medics. This should technically be enough to take out 2 lurkers in any situation except for this one, and it might still be enough, but it's going to be difficult. So I'm going to stim and run for it. So let's see if we can do this. Come on, get up this ramp. Come on, get up this ramp. Come on, move. Like, you see how incredibly difficult it is for these. Okay, I think they're going to take him out because they got us around. No, actually, no, they actually didn't do it. Okay, I did another test where they were able to do it. But that was 15 Marines and 5 medics, and they still couldn't kill 2 lurkers. Look how many kills these guys have. That's how difficult it is to move up ramps with these changes. Now, we have playtested it, and we have been getting some feedback on this pathing. Some players like it, some players don't. At this point, since there are so few Starbow players, we're basically going off of what do we want as developers, and as all of the developers have agreed that this is what we want, and we really like it. And we have gotten used to playing with it. And it looks more brutal in the unit tester because all units in the unit tester start completely clumped up, but in the actual game they don't, and it looks a little bit better when you actually play games. Alright, so that's the first major change. Let's have a look at another change. We can go to different terrain for that one. We made a small change to the Eruptor, so let me just showcase that. Where are we, Eruptors? Let's try 3 versus 6 Mutalisks. There we go. So the Eruptor has 2 attacks. two different attacks. There's one versus ground, one versus air. The versus ground is a flame spit that deals 10 damage, and it has something called a dot damage. No, it's this one, a fire kiss. It's a dot damage thing. I'll explain that later. Let's focus on the anti-air attack for now. The anti-air attack is only 3 damage, but it is 4 missiles and has 7 range. It is no longer splash damage. That's a very big change. But it has an interesting ability. As you can see, we have energy on the Eruptor now. And as soon as the Eruptor reaches 100 energy, it will start to fire more missiles and they will fire faster. It gains energy whenever it is attacking, and it loses energy when it's out of combat. So it's very different. It's not a spellcaster at all. That's not why the energy is there. So basically, if you engage an Eruptor for a long period of time, they are getting harder to fight the longer you fight them. So if you have a flock of mutas, you want to just fly in, snipe, and get out again, and wait for the Eruptor to cool down. Let me just showcase that versus one Eruptor. So we're gonna go in there. We're gonna do a little shot on him, and you see he starts to get red and he starts to get angry, and now he calmed down again. We want to fight him again, and you can see when he was red, he was fighting faster. Let's do that again versus 3, so we can like just fight them straight up, just to see how they fire and what happens. They get red and angry. They also start with burrow, so they can do a little burrow shenanigans micro. Like this guy is getting shot at, so we can like burrow him down, then unburrow him. They can't attack while burrowed, but this is just something to help micro versus things, because you don't want to move them around, because when they move around, they don't lose their ability right away, but they're not firing anymore. So you don't really want to move micro these. You want to burrow micro these instead, and they all survive with very little health. So even though they're doing single target damage instead of splash damage, they're still a pretty good versus mutas, because they have many attacks with weak damage per attack. So that's good versus light units. But versus armored units, as you can actually see, we can just show that now. We had an issue with these, that they were pretty good versus carriers, and that is no longer the issue. Carriers now counter these, although who makes really carriers versus Zerg? But you know, if they used to be really good at killing interceptors because of their splash damage, but that is no longer the case. So here they come, and they try to kill interceptors, but they're not really killing that many interceptors. So, well, they're still doing a pretty good job, but they're not really countering the carriers. And like, I can target fire the carrier itself. It does a decent amount of damage. Well, it does much more damage versus the shields before it gets to the armor part, because they have 4 armor. So once the shield is gone, it doesn't deal that much damage versus the armor. All right. So that's the. Oh yeah, and let me showcase the ground damage, ground attack. I mean, for the Eruptors. This is kind of cool. So let me explain what the Daunt does. So there's a tooltip here. Here, Fire Kiss. Eruptor's Flame Spit lights enemies on fire, applying dots. Enemies receive 25 damage over 3 seconds. That's what the dot means. Now, this does not stack. We should maybe put that in the tooltip. This isn't what I'm showing you isn't like we may make minor changes before we patch, just more aesthetic things and things like that. So it deals extra damage over time after an attack, but it doesn't stack. That's important. So, we need a detection. I always forget this. There we go. So if we have a burrowed lurker from the opponent, and you're like, say, who makes Eruptors versus lurkers in the ZVZ? Well, we just played some ZVZs now, and since we have Eruptors, mutas are no longer as effective. So you usually have a muta face, but it doesn't last as long, and lurkers become quite interesting and important because they counter Zerglings quite well, and also do pretty good versus Hydras if they don't have detection in place. So this attack is pretty cool. So you can come in, you can get a little shot off, there we go, and then it continues to deal damage for a while. And you can do this with only 1 Eruptor, because if you do it with 2 Eruptors, you will get twice as much damage from the Flame Spit, but the 25 extra damage will be the same. So if you keep doing this, you can actually snipe a lurker. Oh, I want to wait a little and let that damage do its work. Ooh, it's actually possible to not get hit because of the movement of the spikes too. So you can do a little sniping damage and kill your opponent's lurkers this way. It's quite micro intensive, but it's also quite fun. And this is one way to soft counter a lurker within a Eruptor. Very soft counterish. So yeah, cool beans. Let's showcase something else. We have made some major changes to Terran, especially Terran Bio. That will be. Actually, before we do that, let's look at Sentinels first, and we can move over to Bio afterwards, and I'll finish with Bio. So we have. Let's just show something. Let's make 8 Zealots versus 15 Hydras. Now, and we have full upgrades. We have speed on the Zealots. We have range and whatever on the Hydras. And I think the Hydras, even without micro, should just win this. We can just see. I think they're just gonna slaughter the Zealots there. It's just too many Hydras. It might be a little bit closer. Maybe I should have microed. Nah, they're gonna win this. Yeah, there we go. So Hydras win fairly easily. They would have done a lot better with micro, I think. But they win. Now we're gonna add in one Sentinel, and we're gonna showcase something cool new for the Sentinel. So the Sentinel, give it some energy, has two abilities. It has Null Ward, which places a Null Ward at a target location after a 0.1 second delay. I don't know if we really needed that. The ward detonates, and it creates a unit that absorbs damage. It doesn't actually absorb damage like a point defense drone would, but it taunts damage. Like it creates a unit that has a high attack priority. So all the opponent units will attack it unless they are told to target fire something else. And it has a lot of health and shield. This unit, I think it's 450. This is like 900 altogether. So basically a nexus you're placing down. It's pretty insane. We may change that too, but we'll see. We can balance things later. So let's look at the same battle again. We're gonna have the Hydras come and attack the Zealots. They can meet in epic form, and we're gonna have this guy around, and he's gonna put down one of these suckers. And you see all the Hydras are starting to attack this now, and you can showcase this other attack it has too. This is another spell that just shoots a beam of splash damage down, and it's very effective in combination with the other one. Because when units are forced to either target fire or they're not paying attention and shooting something else, they're not moving. So this null field becomes quite effective as well. So as a opponent of the Protoss, when you see this null ward placed down, you either have to be very micro intensive and target fire, or you just have to get out of that area and fight them somewhere else. So it works a little similar as a High Templar with Storm. When the storm comes down, you don't want to be in the storm, you want to go back. Or you want to target fire the High Templar before the storm comes down. But this works, of course, versus any unit. Alright, so it's an interesting Stargate option. Sentinel now has no default attack. It only has these two abilities. And I think it's cheaper too, but you can check that out in the actual game. I'm not going to go over every single change. This is in the patch notes. Alright, let's look at Terran Bio. They have received two important changes in terms of units and one in terms of buildings. Let's talk about the building first, actually. So if we make an SDV, I'm not sure if it's going to show up right on the unit tester. Not always it does. But we can build a command center, of course. We can build a supply depot. We can build a barracks. And you're going to notice something different with this barracks. You can no longer make a tech lab. Oh, we can make a ghost. That's not supposed to be right. But whatever. Ghosts are not unlocked from the start. I don't think they're in the game. I think there's just a test map that's messed up. And instead of Tech Lab, we have added, yes, you guessed it, Arsenal, which is, you know, eerily similar to something called an Academy from Brood War. So this is an Arsenal. Oh, all the upgrades have been, there we go. So the Arsenal has 3 upgrades now. It has Stim, it has Barrel Stabilizer, and it has Restoration. The stuff that the Tech Lab had. Since the Arsenal takes longer to build than the Tech Lab, Stim and this takes shorter. And it's adjusted to Brood War values for Academy. We couldn't call it Academy because we still have the Ghost Academy in the game. We don't want to confuse you with 2 academies. Now, you can see we unlocked a lot of stuff here. We unlocked Marine, we unlocked Firebat, we unlocked Medic. Well, they didn't unlock Marine, but Firebat and Medic, and something called an Enforcer, which looks eerily similar to a Marauder. But we wanted to call it something else because it is somewhat different. Especially with its attack. It has a very special attack. It doesn't have explosive or corrosive or any of the damages we have in the game. It has, we haven't given it a name, it has the Marauder attack. It has Punisher Grenades. It only deals 8 damage, but it deals 20 damage versus mechanical, and this is where it's very different from a Marauder. Like the Marauder, it counters mechanical units well, like Dragoons or Stalkers in StarCraft 2, Siege Tanks, Vultures, Goliaths, but it's not particularly good versus armored or massive, so it doesn't necessarily counter lurkers or ultralisks. They have to actually be mechanical, so that's important. So, like they wouldn't do well versus Archons, which is a massive unit, but it's not mechanical. So it's more specialized. It has Stim researchable, and that's about it. Oh, it says explosive damage here. That's actually not right. We need to fix that, because this is not explosive damage. It's a very different kind of damage, and it has 100 HP, which means that it soaks up quite a bit, and it costs 150, and it takes a long time to build. 33 seconds. That's the same as a Ghost. These guys are much faster to build. One of the reasons we made this change first, this Arsenal change, is to make sure you can't like rush out Enforcers with Tech Labs too early, and it just pushes everything back to Brood War balance in terms of Academy. It also makes more sense in terms of getting Orbital Command. And with Scan, now you need the Arsenal to unlock the Scan from Orbital Command. It used to be Engineering Bay. This is more similar to how it was in Brood War again. So we're retaining that balance. This unit again is here to help Terran deal with Protoss as Bio and as Terran if possible. This does not necessarily, even though it deals extra damage versus mechanical, it does not mean that it is especially good versus siege tanks, and we'll showcase that soon. But let's see how 3 Enforcers and a Medic does versus 4. Let me just build a couple of gateways over here.
Upgrade complete.
See how it does versus 4 Dragoons. Can I just... yeah, I can make Dragoons. There we go, that's 4 Dragoons. They have the range upgrade, I think? They don't. There we go. Now they have range, and now these guys have stim. Alright. So this 4 Dragoons is more expensive than 3 Enforcers and a Medic. But this is more specialized to deal with it. We should heal that one. So as you can see, they are wild stimmed, doing quite a lot of damage to these Dragoons. I'm gonna stim it again, and they will barely win. Not a super hard counter, and if you add some Zealots into that mix, it's gonna be a lot more difficult. But they are quite good versus Dragoons. So, I think that's all I wanted to say about Enforcers. Let me show you the last change we made. Oh, actually, let me just throw down a couple of siege tanks to see that they're okay, but they're not like particularly fantastic. So something like that. Yeah, there we go. That's about the same in resources. So I'm not sure if they can do this. We'll see. Like, this is not necessarily gonna make Bio a very good option. As you can see here. Yeah. Well, they're clumping up too much, so I should spread more out. But yeah, as you can see, siege tanks still wreck them. But I should have spread them more out. But still, we only killed 1 siege tank, damaged 1. With more micro, it could have been better. And this unit will replace the Merc. One reason for that is that Merc with the grapple ability and with all the other abilities that Bio has a lot of abilities, it just became so much button mashing. We wanted a more simple unit that was easier to use and more intuitive. Hopefully this will not upset Terran versus Zerg balance in terms of lurkers. As you saw, it only had 8 attack versus non-mechanical units. Having only lurkers on top of ramps though may be a problem because this Enforcer does soak up a lot of damage, but it should be solved by just having a couple of Zerglings there as well. Zerglings deal very well with this unit. So a lurker Zergling mix should deal with a Terran that puts too many Enforcers into his bio mix. But we haven't tested it for sure, so if we find out that's not true, we'll change it. Alright, let me show you the last change we have to bio, and that is the Ghost. So, yeah, no, I want to do this in a different terrain, and we want to have a natural. So let's say we are a frisky bio player who are actually wanting to, we actually want to try and, actually want to try and kill Protoss with bio. All right, so we're gonna do something like that. All right, that might be too much Protoss. Let me get rid of a Zealot or 2. Poor guy. All right, while we do that, we're gonna build a Nexus. So we have a Protoss base here. Oh, pathing begins. All right. Something like that. Alright, I just need to set this up real quick. Hope they can go there without dying. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we have a small Protoss force defending the base. We have like our main army down here that's out on the map somewhere. That's number 1, that's number 2. And then number 3 here, this is our Terran force. Now Terran, they want to attack up here, but they don't want to get flanked. They know the main army is down here somewhere. So what they do is they're going to take this cool Ghost and they're going to set up what's called a point defense turret right here. We're going to set up actually 3 of them. And this turret will fire upon units that are coming their way. So now they're going to stim and go, kill these groups, and like, oh, we got to go and help them. But they have to go through this choke point, and then they're going to have to start fighting these turrets that are shooting on them, as you can see. The turrets are in the air, so only Dragoons can shoot them, but Dragoons will outrange them. But it's already too late. The Terran is already in the base, and by the time they kill these turrets, they're too few units, and they can't really help defend anymore. So these turrets that we put on the Ghost, they cost 50 energy. they act a little bit like spider mines. They set up areas on the map that makes it more difficult for Protoss to traverse, so that the army can become a little bit more mobile. Let me show you a couple of important details. The turret has 5 range. Range upgraded Dragoons have 6. So the Dragoons can outrange them, unless we've been messing around with range. Let me just see if that's what's still there. Yeah, it's 5 range. Okay, it lasts for 67 seconds, and it has 140 HP, and it is light, so Dragoons take a long time shooting it. Zealots can't attack it at all. So when Protoss are faced with these turrets, you get 2 choices. You can try and fight them. I get 3 choices. You can try and fight them. You can just run through them, and like that's probably what I should have done here. Just run through them, take some damage, and then go help my buddies so we can get a good pincer attack. Or you can just back off and just wait for them to go away. Since only Dragoons can really shoot them, well, of course, like Corsairs and stuff, but you don't really make that versus Terran Bio. These are also kind of good in combination with the Enforcer, because you put up a couple of point defense turrets, you lure your opponents to only use his Dragoons to clear them, and then you stim and go in with the Enforcers and pick off the Dragoons. So you have a lot of things like that you can do. So it's quite an interesting spell. This replaces whatever other spell we had on the Ghost at the slot. I don't even remember anymore. We've been testing so many spells with the Ghost that I'm so confused on what we had. This also still has the kinetic destabilizer, which is on the live, which is kind of like a lockdown, but it doesn't kill a unit unless it moves. So if you lock down a unit with this, I'm just oh, it's not. It doesn't upgrade. Okay, whatever. Test map. If you lock down a unit with this, the unit has to stand still, and if it starts to move, it will die. Or it will take a lot of damage. And then it lasts for a long time, like 120 seconds or something. So you basically disable a unit for a long time. It's really good versus like dropships and reavers and things like that. But I think it has to be mechanical. Yeah, kind of like lockdown. All right, and then another cool little thing you can do with the Ghost is you can cloak it, and then you can sneak into your opponent's base, into his mineral line, and you can place these little suckers right over the mineral line, and they're in a lot of trouble. This is basically like having a DT in your base. So getting detection versus Terran Bio now, as Protoss, for example, is going to be quite important. All right, I think that's all the stuff for this expansion that I wanted to talk about. There are going to be some other minor changes. Read the patch note. We do meet in the Discord channel. See the link below for that. If you want to find some opponents to play Starbow with. And that's all for this patch. Have a good one.